going on, ladies and gentlemen? This is Kevin Jackowitz, along with my dear darling wife, Rebecca. Say hi,
Hi.
Rebecca. So, a couple of posts that we made, or that I posted rather, that were kind of before I actually restarted my channel, talked about her borderline personality, and she talked about some of the things that kind of happened along the way to help create that. But what is borderline personality is the question, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I'm kind of going to be the main person talking. I think Rebecca can fill in anytime she wants to. She she is so camera shy. But borderline personality is a couple of things that kind of gel to make this perfect storm. And it's a mental susceptibility that's kind of already there, but then typically, not 100% of the times, but typically it's through a lot of trauma and a lot of extreme things that happened. And Becca in her last post talked about some of the extreme things that happen and what kind of effects that has on a person can vary person to person, but sometimes there's just this perfect recipe for borderline personality. And it tends to have a few facets. And one of the first things that you notice with somebody with BPD is they have a hard time with relationships, really of any kind. And what it does, and it is instills in them this need to have somebody there, but also this major fear that they're not going to be, because typically in their life, it has been proven that people are only there to use, manipulate, abuse, um, you know, or just abandon. And so that's what they expect. They expect somebody to not be there. They expect somebody to not be able to handle things. They expect somebody to not love them unconditionally. And it's very hard for them because as they get attached, their fear grows. And it creates this thing called splitting, which is essentially where the person you love the most or the people you love the most become the people you're the most afraid of because you think they're going to leave, or you just expect them to turn into this raging asshole. And sometimes it makes things very difficult when that's actually not the case and it is somebody that is actually trying to love them. They can act out in some pretty heavy ways. And some of them ways are more than unhealthy. And through our time together, we've had to deal with some major trials. And I think that trials that would have separated most people a long time ago. And we've kind of talked about this before, but I'll give you kind of a rundown. When somebody acts out, they go back to a place where they were abused. They go back to the time where people were treating them badly. So they revert back to a time mentally where they act out. And it can be very challenging at times. Um, when we first met, she hates this, she does. But at the same time, I think it's cool that people know and understand because this does actually have a happy ending, believe it or not. But when we first met, it was fun at first, and for the first few weeks, couple of months, it was just like a physical thing, and it was like getting to know each other, and everything was unicorns and rainbows. And then she started getting attached, and that's when things started to go haywire. Because I was constantly, trying to talk to other girls when I wasn't, and she was always searching my phone for girls that weren't there, and just like always thinking the worst in me. And it wasn't just girls; it was a lot of things. I was going to leave her; she wanted to leave because she, couldn't handle the situation or something. Um, but then it started to get extreme, and this is where the borderline kicks in. She started to split, see me as an enemy instead of as a person that loves her and a person that she loves. And when that would happen, I mean, it ranged a pretty big gambit. And at one point, uh, she got a little violent with me, put her hands on me a couple of times, which she was pregnant, so that put me in an odd spot. And I've told her, you can't do that ever again. Like, I don't care what the situation is. And so far, like, she's held to that, and it's like been really good. One point we had an argument. I don't even remember what the argument was about, and um, but she went extreme with it, and then called people that she knew and said that I was sexually abusing her. And they told that to her ex boyfriend, who was always trying to weasel his way back into her life. And it turned into this whole thing where I wound up having 4 squad cars pull up at the storage unit where we were staying. I had no idea that any of this had happened. And they pulled her out, took her to a safe house. And I was flabbergasted, to say the least, when I found out what had happened. And she's since come clean and told everybody the truth and stuff. But it's just kind of like what her mind did. And I had to make a choice that day in particular, because that's very dangerous, and we've talked about that. Um, that it's like one of those things where you choose to stand by somebody and try to love them through what's happening and know that it's not them, even though it can put you in a dangerous place. And so you have choices to make, and you have choices that could affect the rest of your life. And so my choice that day was, all right, I understand this isn't her. I understand what's happening. I'm going to try to talk to her about it and make sure it never happens again, and then get past it. And so what I'm trying to describe here is some of the things that you deal with that you don't see coming with somebody with borderline personality disorder. And every case is different, and every person acts out differently. But these are just kind of some of the extreme things that have happened. And so I decided to stick by her. And it's one of those things where with borderline personality, you have to learn what's actually happening. And that is, she is reliving traumas from the past, and she is going through things that she's already gone through in other situations, other relationships, other familial type scenarios. And and she's rehashing that in real time. And there are things that trigger that, and there are things that somebody could say that would trigger something from her past, and there are things that somebody does that brings back all these things that have happened to her. And we're talking big time. We're not talking like, oh, I had a bad day. We're talking life altering events. um, Wake up, woman. We got a newborn and we're both losing sleep here. But borderline personality, they tend to do that. They tend to act in reckless ways. They tend to say one of the things you could point out is reckless spending, spending money when you need to be holding on to it. That's like a stereotypical thing that happens. And there are kind of reckless behaviors that go along with it. Very hard time dealing with relationships, very hard trusting people, very heavy emotional ups and downs. And that really is the key point of borderline personality. They call it a personality disorder, but in truth, it deals with the elevated emotions that they deal with. They deal with emotions on a much different level than the normal you or I. Borderline personality, if we get angry over something, it takes a few seconds to get over it. They're just instantly angry. And when we could get over it in, 30 minutes to an hour, they could feel it for 8, 12, maybe 24 hours, And it takes them a while to be able to process and deal with their emotions. And so it's one of those things where you have to be prepared to know that it's a very intense relationship. And, I heard somebody say once that when it's good, it's complete bliss. And when it's bad, it's hell. And that's very true. Um, there are moments like we had when we were first together where it really, really was just amazing. She's very loving. She's very nurturing. She has so many good qualities about her. But then when it was bad, and it would come out of nowhere, you don't know how to handle it. And there's no textbook for it. It's just like having a kid. You don't know how to prepare for something like this. And so I think my own trauma, my own history with mental health, and my own history with having a really screwed up upbringing really helped me to prepare and to be able to deal with Becca a little bit better than most people because I actually understand her a little bit better. That's how I feel about it anyway. I always made the joke that, everything I went through prepared me for what she's going through. And here's the good news. I've done a lot of research on borderline personality disorder. I've wanted to be educated. And I think one of the things that I don't think people understand is borderline personality disorder has one of the higher success rates for remission when it comes to like the major health disorders. And I think that Becca is coming through that hole right now. I think that she is at a point in her life like we haven't had a real incident in a while, uh, which is great. I think she realizes that there's somebody there that's going to stick beside her, that's going to love her through whatever's happening, that's going to try to help her get back to some kind of independence and show her that she can do what everybody has said that she can't do. She's had a lot of people throughout her life say she's never going to be able to do anything. She's never going to have a good life. She's never going to be able to be a mother. Well, she's married now in a what is becoming a very successful relationship. She's got a bank account. She's handling her own finances and she's doing it fairly well. She's got a son now that she takes care of better than I think most mothers, honestly. Like, I've seen a lot of mothers that don't do what she does with our son. She is right there and she takes care of him. She loves him. Like, we have cameras set up because we had DCF involved because, um, because of the diagnosis, because they want to make sure that the baby's safe. And, to an extent, I get that. But the extent stops at give her a chance to be a mother. Let her do this. And so far, I think she's proven all the naysayers wrong. And nice. This girl, I swear. So she really is though. She's doing an amazing job with everything. And she's come here. She's also a squirrel. Um, but she's been doing a great job. She really has. And I love her to death. And I think that just because she was diagnosed with something, um, I'm not going to let that define her. And I've told her that in the past. I'm not going to let her just accept, oh, this is who I am and I can't change and this and that. And no. Um, I understand the trauma. I understand how not having somebody be there for you affects you. And I refuse to let that be her life. And I'm trying to get her independent because if God forbid something happens to me, I want her to be able to live and be on her own and do the things that a mother and any normal standard person on the planet would have to do. It's very possible, and I think she's come so far. Um, we have not had an incident in quite some time, and that's important to say because I don't want people to feel stuck. Like if there's somebody out there that deals with borderline personality disorder, and you feel like your life's never going to change, it can. It can. You have to have the right people. You have to have a support system. And that's one of the big things is you have to have a support system. You got to have somebody in your life that just gives a shit and is there. And I think with a lot of love, a lot of patience, you can bring somebody back from that. And I believe that that is happening with Rebecca. She has done so well. And even in stressful situations, like our baby right now, he's like 21, 22 days old, so just turned 3 weeks, and he's colicky. And I'm talking bad colicky. Like this baby, I love him to death, but he cries so much sometimes. And you want to talk about a stressful situation? That's a lot for anybody. That's any mother. And she has dealt with it with patience, with love, with understanding of the situation. Like literally, what more can you ask? That's a 10 out of 10 parent right there. Um, and I don't think she would have been able to do that when we first met. She was still dealing with the after effects of her family, her piece of shit ex, who did nothing but use and manipulate her, was happy to keep her on the streets while he took her money. He was getting all the good stuff and contributing nothing. And he was afraid to leave her for 30 seconds because he was afraid she was going to go run off with someone else. Well, when you act like that and you're afraid to leave somebody because you think they're going to run off, guess what's going to happen? They're going to run off because you're not doing anything for them. You're not doing anything to better her life, to contribute to her life. And I didn't necessarily expect us to get together when we met and when I was trying to get her away from her POSX. But I think one of the things that she noticed is that I am trying to help her. I am trying to get her into a better life, into something that's like a stable environment. We got into a place. We have a son now. Like I said, she's dealing with her own finances now. This is huge stuff for her. So, borderline personality, I mean, that's kind of what it is by definition. It has a lot of interesting traits. But I think there is a way back too. And I think that's why I wanted to make this post. Is there is kind of a before and after here. There really is. Yes, there's a lot of things you have to deal with. Yes, you have to be patient. Yes, you have to love them. And I'll give you a perfect example, and I'm not going to mention any names. But when she was pregnant, we had a family member here, and Becca has been told, that if you feel frustrated, if you feel like it's getting to be too much, it's okay to set the baby down for about 5 minutes, go collect yourself, and then come back. The baby's going to be fine for that 5 minutes. He'll be fine. At the end of the day, it may not be the best situation, but he'll be fine. As long as you can catch yourself, bring yourself back to center, and then come back to help your baby. And every medical professional has told her to do that. And there was a situation in the hospital when DCF first showed up, and it really scared the hell out of her because, I mean, let's be honest, who likes DCF in the first place? But it made her very, very uncomfortable, and she was kind of having a moment. I'll be honest, I was kind of having a moment because they showed up. And this family member couldn't accept that and was like, no, you have to change your baby right now. It's not fair to the baby. You got to do this. You got to do that. Well, you're not a medical professional and you have no business saying anything about it. It's our baby. We make those choices. And the medical professionals with literally, decades of experience have told her these are the choices you have to make. So at the end of the day, it's not okay for you to say, you need to do this now and get angry about it. That's not your place. And that's what I'm saying is you have to understand what the situation is. And you have to have way more understanding than that. And you have to have way more love than that. You can't just get angry with somebody because you think your way is the right way. And in dealing with borderline personality disorder, you have to know how to love them. You have to know how to be patient with them. If you don't, it all falls apart. And that's just what it is. There's no getting around it. There's a lot of self that has to be removed when you're talking about dealing with somebody with BPD. And it's unfortunate that some people just don't know how to get outside of themselves. It really is, because at the end of the day, we're all here to improve each other's lives. Like, if you're not trying to improve the life of the person you're with, you shouldn't be with them. And if they're not trying to improve your life, you should not be with them. And that's just the way it is. So it's just kind of some food for thought for people. I wanted to throw that little nugget in there because I do think it is important. You have to understand what you're dealing with. This is not something she chose. Borderline personality is very difficult to deal with. It can cause some emotional turbulence. It's very painful at times. And so you have to treat that with some empathy. So I'm going to turn this over to her and just see if she has anything she wants to add or say. So I guess not. So with that, we're going to get out of here. I got a whole bunch of stuff to do yet today. It's been a long day already, trust me. But I'm going to let you guys go. And we're going to get back to it. Right, baby? We'll talk to you guys later.